Damon, I had this thought,
Yeah.
which is, you know, we were talking about this a little while ago off camera. You know how there seems to be this dependency that the LLM providers, I'm talking about Anthropic, ChatGPT, Grok, you name
Hmm.
the big frontier models, and the question of humans becoming sort of dependent on them. It's just like, copy paste, tell me exactly what I should say, and they just copy paste it without any thought, any judgment, just kind of whatever default. We always talk about the median like content out there in the world. You're just kind of getting the average, the
The
same.
free stuff that was scraped, and yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Uh,
the stuff that's sort of hidden, that you don't, it's just everything is available to everybody except for the really good stuff is sort of
right.
hidden in private databases or
The
private.
behind the paywall stuff that you can't get to. Yeah.
Well, that's it, the behind the paywall stuff. And people are using these LLMs and okay, are we becoming very dependent on these? And how do you justify the cost of what they are spending? Are there going to be enough customers when everybody, if AI is developing so fast, everybody
Right.
do what they do?
Right. Yeah. Your basic question was, how are they justifying the spend on AI, and what is an analogous sort of
Yeah. If
industry
everybody
or
can do
outlook?
what they do, right?
Yeah.
Like,
But I said, it's like a gym membership. At the end of the day, you don't have to have a gym. If you do 100 body weight squats, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and stop eating crap, you're going to be perfectly healthy, right? But they market to us the body that looks amazing because someone went to the gym. So on January 1st, hundreds of thousands of people show up at the gym and they get a gym membership and they never use it, right?
AI subscriptions.
Exactly. AI subscriptions are almost the same thing, where they market so much opportunity for what you could do with it, and in essence, many people completely underutilize it. They've got amazing equipment right there in front of their faces, right at their fingertips. And, the underutilization of AI is almost the equivalent of having, that exercise bike in the corner of your bedroom that's got a whole bunch of clothes on top of it. You know what I mean? You're totally using it for the wrong reason, in the wrong way.
So I guess the question is are there enough people out there in the world to justify what they will need to bring in as revenue to make those businesses sustainable? And I guess that's an open question, right? Like you could say, well, if everybody can basically take an open source model, put it on their laptop or something eventually, or some people do it already, but you can take smaller models and put it on your laptop and start running your own AI disconnected from the internet. But if you want like a frontier model, like the best model, yes, you probably have to go to the cloud, pull it down, and use it from the internet, some setup that way.
Yeah.
But or is there enough people out there in the world to justify the return on investment for all of this spend they're doing on the data centers?
This is the challenge that I'm hearing. I listened to Prof G Markets podcast, and they talk about AI spending a lot. And one of the things that they have raised is this notion that the capital expenditures that they're putting out for AI data centers and infrastructure and all this other stuff, is the expenditures are so exorbitant that it feels impossible to make up for the amount of spend. And you've probably heard some of the numbers in terms of what Anthropic and what OpenAI are actually spending now without even having created the number of data centers that they would like to. I mean, they're burning through billions and billions of dollars. And the challenge I think they have is they've actually got a gigantic head start on spending without actually producing anywhere near the amount of revenue that would start to show that, the revenue curve and the expenditure curve are going to cross, where expenditures go down because revenue is going up. Revenue's not going up anywhere near enough
Yeah.
for the expenditures to be overcome. I mean, they're just astronomical. And so therein lies the challenge of the AI hyperscalers, is how do we ever begin to recoup the amount we've already spent
Right.
in revenue? It's just it feels
And then
impossible, if I'm
yeah,
honest.
and then you see this Kimi 3, I think it's called, Kimi
Kimi
3.
K3.
Yeah, where the Chinese model comes out and they're like, yeah, it's open source. Download it if you want and use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's no, that's the crazy bit, is like, it's maybe not the best, or maybe it is the best right now. I'm not sure, but there's a competition there, right? I know there's a anti-China fear in the US, right? Where it's
Yeah.
a careful using the model, but like you could conceivably download it, put it on a server, and just don't connect to the internet.
Yeah. The
Just use.
AI race feels like, if you ever been to a carnival and you see that you can bet on the horses and they're trotting along like this, and like your horse starts out in front, but then the other guy catches up and yours slows down, and then that one slows down and the next one catches up. That's what the AI race feels like. They're just it doesn't matter. It depends on where you are in the race. Like at the beginning, everybody's relatively even, and then some start pulling away, and you can't tell who's going to be the winner. Winning is probably going to be a minuscule margin of recognizable revenue because they're all scaling and learning from each other at the same time, right? I saw you sent me an article a while back. I forgot what it was called, but it basically talks about this concept of the AI models learning from each other by prompting each other. Every time a new version comes out, they just hammer it and hammer it and hammer it with prompts to figure out how it thinks and works. And then they take all those lessons learned and they put it back in their own model. It's like, almost cheating off of the other guy's homework to get the right answers. And therefore nobody can get ahead because there's this swirl of knowledge exchanging back and forth between the models. It's incredible.
Yeah, and then the data centers that they're building for these models, I think they depreciate super fast, because a new model comes out, you got to build you're not going to build a new data center every 3 months.
Yeah.
It's feasible, right?
We may have talked about this before off camera, this notion that through all these great technological revolutions, there is a long tail on the innovation, and how much expenditure you have to put down up front, but how long that thing will last over time. And I think one of the examples was the railroad, right? It damn near broke the bank on the United States economy, but then the long tail of the economic benefit of having a national railroad network that didn't deteriorate for, I don't know, what was 50 years, that had immense economic value. Now, contrast that with AI, which, to anybody paying attention, you realize that AI has a new innovation almost daily and definitely weekly. You're always hearing about something new coming out. And so with this extreme race to speed of execution and what they're hoping will be AGI, it's incredibly challenging to try to say, all right, this set of chips right here and this infrastructure is going to be what we're going to use for the next 20 years. Next 20 years is like 10,000 dog lives. You know what I mean? It's just forever away in the AI space. Next month is a long time away in the AI space. And so it really diminishes that long tail of the initial investment to how long you can actually use it and benefit from it, because the innovation cycle is so rapid.
Yeah, I mean, it just feels I'm seeing more. I mean, maybe it's because of my algorithm, when I'm looking at stuff on LinkedIn or
You can't get away from it.
but it just seems like very 1999, maybe early 2000s. It's like, at what point do investors, the people that are funding these large companies, at what point do they just go, that's enough, you need to start producing, like,
No doubt. Yeah.
and bucket of money? I don't know.
But
But as soon, I think, at first when they came out, think about, you go back to 2022, is that right? When ChatGPT came out? And everybody was just astonished at what it could do. And now what it could do back then, or even in 23 or even in 24, is completely like, oh, that's okay. It's like,
Yeah.
not great. You get a little bit of value, but now you're being able to make like actual automations to take things that a human would maybe do. And it's getting better and better. So you start to think, okay, well, at some point it's good enough. Like when the first car, I see you're wearing a Ferrari thing, right? So like, I see the first car that came out, right? It was probably like, oh my God, look at this thing. I can get off the horse, not the Ferrari, but like, I can get off the horse. I can be in this car, and it's going to be super expensive, and only the most wealthy people can buy this thing, right? Then you can afford and all the rest. But, you think about it, as the cars get better and better with more features and more technology, yeah, eventually people say, well, I don't really need that one little increase of something. I'm good
Mhm.
enough here at the price point that I like. So I think that's what's happening with the small models is you're starting to get pretty good like responses out of the open source stuff or at a lower tier model. You don't need, I think there's even people complaining. They're like, oh, we really like ChatGPT 4. It used to be really like the popular one. And then when it went up to 5, people were sort of complaining, oh, we'll go back to 4. I think it was like interacting with us much better. Um, so there's a question of like, do they actually make some of these AI models dumber over time? We
Yeah.
just you end up paying
Dumber
for.
over time, and what is the actual increased value of what they've produced, right? I was thinking we were talking before about your mom driving a 2002 Jetta to just continue this analogy, right? She drives that car because it's paid for, it's good enough, it's got 4 wheels, it gets her from A to B. You could have a Ferrari or you could have a 2002 Jetta. Either way, if you've got fuel to get from point A to point B, it's the same thing, right? It's I was talking to my father the other day and we were discussing luxury watches. And he was like, listen, I've never gotten into luxury watches because listen, I could pay $9 for a Mickey Mouse watch or $10,000 for a Rolex. And at 12:05, they both say the same time. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like it doesn't. So it was just a real practical example of, when you have an extreme expenditure, what is the incremental value of what you're getting from that item?
Well, I think at some point when you're meeting your needs, right, like of whatever that thing is doing, it gets you from point A to B. Then it's not about the utility of the thing. It goes beyond utility and it goes to like experience
Hmm.
or sense of belonging to the brand or community. So like I'll go back to I said I like your jersey there with the
Thank you,
Ferrari.
man.
You just came back from Italy.
I did. That was a wonderful
Those
trip.
those cars could have got you from A to B.
Yeah, yeah, I agree 100%. So, yeah, the cars are amazing, but do you have to have the 2027 Ferrari whatever it is, or could you get by with my 2016 BMW X3? I'm doing just fine. You know what I mean? So, but that it also comes down to if you just got money to burn, I totally get it. But I wanted to go back to something you were talking about earlier. We were discussing this idea of how the LLM can sometimes be the sort of central repository for a lot of people in terms of folks are storing all of their data in the LLM and expecting it to remember everything about them. But you were talking about this guy, Jake Van Cleef, and his framework for helping to manage people's ability to move from LLM to LLM. If you do you want to just revisit that? What is this?
So
Tell me a
my
little bit about how he does this.
I guess what I realized is that back to what I was saying earlier about this idea that the LLMs that are out there, they're going to want your subscription. They're going to want you to become dependent. They're not going to want you to switch easy. Like if you're a business, they're going to want all of the information, all of the memory. They're going to want you dependent on them
Mhm.
that you can't easily switch. So you're always like predictable revenue. Like, hey, Sean's giving, Anthropic or OpenAI $20 a month or $200 a month or whatever forever. Like that's
Mhm.
basically how SaaS works, right? You want to
Right.
customers happy enough so they don't, attrit. Now, the problem with that is you become very dependent. I've seen it in enterprise software, right? Whether it's Salesforce or other brands that I've worked with. Companies get very dependent on the software and it's very hard to unwind it. It's almost like it gets into your tech stack and it's like the hooks get in there,
You're
right?
locked in.
You're locked in, you
Yeah.
can't get out of it, right? You're kind of dependent on the ecosystem. It's almost like Apple, right? I've got an iPad, I got an MacBook Air, I've got a phone. Like now, if I switch, I'm like, yeah, but now my phone doesn't really talk as well to my laptop, and I don't
Yeah.
get my music. Like, so you kind of that's the goal is to get you in the ecosystem, right?
Right.
Now, LLMs, if you can easily switch off of ChatGPT and go to Anthropic, or next day there's a new company, or you want to go to Kimi, the Chinese one, you have to think, well, ChatGPT knows me because I've been talking to it. It's very good with bringing back the memory of what I talked about several conversations ago.
Mhm.
Go and
Yeah,
get it.
people get very attached because it feels like the LLM knows them. Yeah.
Right. And I tried it this morning, right? I still have a ChatGPT subscription, despite the fact that I do have an AI that helps with strategy. And again, it's based on information that's not in ChatGPT. But sometimes you'll use ChatGPT for other things. And I noticed this morning, I asked it, I said, you remember this conversation I had with you? It was a little while ago. It was like yesterday, and we were talking about X. And it's like, oh, yeah, of course. And it kind of gave me that. It's actually talking about what are the best way to set up these folders on your computer so that memory is sort of stored on your computer versus storing it within like the knowledge repository of ChatGPT.
You're storing it basically locally versus
Yeah,
dumping your
storing
knowledge
locally.
into chat. I got it.
And it basically came back and said, here is the folders we talked about. It answered everything correctly. Oh, we talked about this, and this was the reason why we're talking about this, and you settled on this, and here's the folder structure. So, like, most of the conversation was great. The folder structure was completely hallucinated. It was totally made up.
Oh, interesting.
I was like, what? I was like, no, that's not right. Double check. And then after double check, it came back with the right answers.
And
So,
it
like,
probably was so polite. You were right to push back.
well, yeah, exactly. And you're like, holy, how do you trust this thing? You can't.
I know.
So because it is by nature non-deterministic, it's very hard to trust it if you're just prompting and expecting a response.
Yeah.
What Jake's method is talking about here is like, how do you make the memory not dependent on one of the LLMs? You can actually keep it locally, and then you give it instructions so that you know that every time you use the agent, it will go check a file that is going to make it deterministic. And by deterministic versus non-deterministic, what I mean is you're making it understand what you want, who you are, what's your history, what's your background, what are your goals. All of that has been predefined, versus you're just hoping when you roll the dice, the right answer comes out. I think that was the part that I understood was like very important, that no matter which LLM comes out with the better one this month, and you get caught up on all these tools and what it can do next month, and like a week later you get distracted by this shiny object. If you just go back to the simple software engineering that's been around for decades, it's like files and folders, right?
Yeah.
You put things in different areas, the files and folders, and you just access them when you need to.
That is brilliant.
That framework has worked for decades. So why change it?
Yeah.
And you don't have to be dependent on certain companies with all of your personal, information and how you want to interact with it.
So what you're saying is, if I set up my file structure on my computer correctly, in a well-organized way, and let's just say I'm building agents, if the agent knows where the files are and what the structure is, I could use that same file structure in ChatGPT or in Claude. It doesn't matter because the file structure is where the knowledge is. It's not in the LLM that I'm using itself.
Correct. Because then you could also put into files, which are these markdown files. You can tell it, hey, if you come across this situation where I'm talking about this, then go and check this other file. And then when you go to this other file, oh, that other file says go and write something in this other file.
Right.
So like,
right.
You
creates
can
reference for you.
Yeah, you can automate things easily, but obviously you have to sit down and think about what's my structure. I haven't quite gotten to that full blown setup yet. I know you've done some of that with your Claude MD file and how you've structured to make your employees, and it's on the instructions that are not like embedded in an LLM sitting over there. It's actually on your machine, and then you can say, hey, if it's Anita with scheduling or whatever your employee does, you can say, go to that file. Oh, it's talking about scheduling. Oh, okay. Then it must be this instruction I need to follow.
Exactly.
You're kind of like putting your prompts in the files versus like just trying to remember them one-off kind of conversation. It's very different. Like if you're talking to an employee just started and I'm like, hey, I'm going to tell you what to do and go off and do it and come back. And then they go, oh, I didn't do it quite the right way. You're like, oh, well, it had no context. So you're giving them all the.
So this is a great example. I'm glad you said that. So in the instance of a human employee, if you, Sean, are the boss and I come in as the employee and you've got instructions for me If I walk into our meeting and I don't write anything down, I just use my memory, I'm probably going to remember about a quarter of what you said,
You'll
right?
miss something.
I'm going to miss some things. And when I go away and I come back, I'm only going to be able to re-articulate or have executed a portion of what you said because I was completely relying on memory. However, if I walk into that same meeting and I am diligently writing down notes so that when I walk out of your office, I can look back at my notes and go, Sean said this, and he prefers it this way. I'm very clear on what the instructions are. And so those notes are equivalent to what these MD files are for these various agents. You're giving them the notes on your local computer so that they can go back and see, oh, Damon likes these. He likes his output in bullet points. He likes it short and sweet. And here's my notes from our last meeting. I will raise these 3 open issues the next time we talk, right? It's a wonderful way to set up the file structure.
I think it's making AI more deterministic, like it's following instructions that you want it to follow versus you putting something into like a slot machine. You're like, I don't know if it's going to come out right this time or not. And then I'm going to have to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Right.
Which is basically you burning tokens, which is what the AI model companies want you to do because that justifies their need to go build data centers.
That's exactly right.
So the more token Damon burns, they're going to be like, oh, I need more compute. I need more servers. I need to go build a data center, which means I need more money because I can say that I have all this demand, right, for more compute. But in reality, a lot of that token cost is wasted because if you have the instructions offline, not in the LLM, then it can go through and read. It doesn't have to make mistakes along the way. It could just go, oh, go to that file, read that, do that.
Reads its notes.
Not like
and you reminded me as you were speaking about burning tokens. I had one of my agents sitting here working, and that guy's been just going, and it wouldn't respond to me. And I was like, yo, if this guy's burning tokens, we need to clip this. So I just killed it. But so I'm hopeful that you just saved me a couple of dollars on whatever that job was working on.
So I'm really interested to see how that is going to play out this as I set up my file structure. So I'm going to follow Jake Van Cleef's school community and
highly recommend. Yeah.
Regardless if it's my LLM I'm using or it's, the ChatGPT or Anthropic, they all need to talk to certain memory content. Right. And the more efficient you can be with that, the better.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And for anybody who doesn't understand what we're talking about, you can use AI to help you build AI. So ask AI about Jake Van Cleef and his ICM framework. Forgive me, I don't remember what ICM stands for, but
Interpretive Context Framework, I believe.
Nice. ICM. Close enough. Either way, Jake Van Cleef, check him out. He's brilliant.
I'm going to actually bring on screen, if I can find it on my YouTube here, I'm going to bring up the video that I think people should watch first. Awesome. This is the YouTube video I think is worth watching. Your automated layer, how 30,000 people in his community are building AI without frameworks. And basically his argument is that all of this sort of building of AI agents is missing the point. Like software engineering has been based on like very simple files and folders, and it's been working. So why overcomplicate it? This is sort of a proven thing. So anyway, he's talking about how there's different layers, right? First, there's like you copy paste, and this is most of what people are doing today. You put some effort in, it's pretty low, but you get like some output out of it. And then you start structuring it, and you can actually, this is where you have sort of your markdown files, and they're like, instructions across, and you're talking to each other. But he goes into the detail. I'm not going to cover off exactly what he says because I don't want to get it wrong. But just to show you here, if you looked at Claude, you can see here's all the folders that you can see in Claude. And each one of these folders might have sort of what you always hear about the terms Claude skills for anybody who's thinking about skills in Claude and developing them. You see that folder, and this is just English. It's text. It's just not code. A human can read this. So you can imagine that you have these instructions that then might reference other files. So like it's saying, if you want to do something here, go to this file, this
Right.
pat file thing. If you want to, like, if we're talking about some other thing, go to this other file and do that skill and generate a video or generate audio or do whatever. So the markdown files are really like the agent versus you
Yeah.
having all
Right. The
these.
file structure has all of the instructions for how the AI is supposed to operate. And based on that entire universe of instructions, in essence, that's your agent. You're telling AI to operate within these parameters.
That's
Here's
right.
what's within bounds. Here's what's out of bounds. And here's what your core competency is. These are your goals.
That's right. That's just sort of how he breaks down what the different use cases are, from sort of simple level one where you're copy pasting things into ChatGPT and then you use it, all the way up to having full integrated workflows. Let's see what
Love it.
else. Yeah, he gets into some detail, and then he sort of demonstrates what he thinks is coming. At some point, we're all going to be using these voice agents, and imagine that you have your sort of file structure in the background, and I've got mine in the background, and then we can just talk to our own. But I could also talk to yours and be like, "Hey, Damon, can you tell me about something?" And if you all of your basically second brain is set up, then I can sort of like interact with you, your digital you, or with you as a human, and then also interact with all of your knowledge that you want to share with the world
That's right.
through voice.
Yeah.
I think that will change just a lot of things.
Yeah. And this is what we were saying before, the idea that by setting up this file structure, you basically can document for a small startup or solopreneur or whatever, or even a medium sized company. If you've got a bunch of agents that are doing a bunch of jobs and you've got this file structure set up appropriately, in essence, you could put that whole company and all of its agents on a thumb drive and walk across the street to someone else's computer and set up the whole company there, because the structure is, the company follows the structure versus being locked into the LLM where you can't appropriately extract it. So yeah, it's a wonderful concept. I've implemented it within my organization and it has proven to be fantastic, because I've created the stage gates for when one process or issue goes from one agent to the next, and it's all documented. So they all know, I'm looking for this output that allows me to start my next process. It's really fantastic.
How do you start? Like, what's step one? You got to identify some pain you're feeling, some business process that you're like, I think I can automate this thing. And then you kind
Yeah.
of interact with Claude or ChatGPT or something, and you sort of figure out what's the structure of the folders, or or what goes in the markdown file.
So
How do
what
you?
I did was I started off with Jake's ICM framework, and I just documented everything that he said about how this structure is organized. And then I created my own version of that file structure as an MD file that AI could read. And so now AI knows this is the structure that we use for every single project, this ICM framework. We're going to set this up every time we set up a new agent, a new project, a new this, a new that. We're going to use this. And so I created an agent that is my project manager, and that project manager is responsible for setting up everything that I do. And the project manager is using this ICM framework every single time. So I've created a repeatable process. And then, as you've indicated, I start with where I have a pain, discomfort, repetitive process, something that is draining my time and dragging me down into the tactical execution, where I want to stay up here on the strategic level. And so where those things are things like simple email triage. We all get hundreds of newsletters. We all have all of these subscriptions to things. And then there's also the real humans that are trying to interact with us. AI is perfectly capable of recognizing all of my repetitive newsletters and separating them out and allowing me to look at just the human engagement that I need to focus on. Similarly, we've talked before about my agent, Anita, who is handling my scheduling. So when you, Sean, reach out and say, hey, Damon, can I get 30 minutes with you next week? I'll forward that email to Anita. And because she knows the ICM framework and the infrastructure that I utilize, she can go to my calendar and reply back to you and say, here are the times that Damon's available, and here's his calendar link. Those two pieces right there have gained me back hours in my week just because it's that many fewer things that I have to do as a person. I know it's taken care of because an AI agent is executing on my behalf. So that, again, keeps me up here at the strategic level. And, time is money. And if I'm spending time on the tactical, the strategic is where the money's made. I'm losing money by staying down in the tactical areas.
So for those people that are a little bit concerned about, look, AI is going to, kill privacy, right? Because we're all going to be either uploading our stuff into these LLMs that are learning from our data or from our business proprietary data. Once you set up these folders, your memory is sort of living within your environment, your laptop, your server, your cloud instance, wherever it is. But you're still sending information to the LLMs, depending on which company you're using, unless you're doing a local one on your own machine or something. Uh, i- is it safe? I guess I don't know if that's the right question, but like people are worried, like, okay, well, if I'm going to attach it to my Gmail, God knows what's in my Gmail. I don't even know. It's been there for like 10 years.
Yeah.
My social security number, I can have
Hope
lots of
not.
things that are in there.
Yeah.
Well, it could be. I mean, you could have.
Yeah. You're buying a house, you got mortgage statements, you're emailing back and forth documents. The
That's it.
documents have PII on them, all that stuff. I get it.
Well, that's it, right? So inevitably there will be a passport picture or
Yep.
something in
Driver's
there.
license.
Well,
Yep.
that's it, right? So with the whole identity theft and all that worry, when you connect your Gmail to one of the LLM providers so they can read it, like
Mm-hmm.
how have you done that? Have you set up separate emails for these AIs, or have you just said like, go ahead and read Damon's email? Like,
It's
what's
reading
your
my email. Because at the end of the day, listen, I don't really believe there's any privacy. I'll just be candid with you. You know what I mean? I've given up.
You've lost the battle already?
I've given up. Right there, I was joking with my wife the other day that we've had so many emails about data breaches
Yeah.
for credit cards, for
Oh my God.
healthcare providers, for all kinds of stuff. Listen, your data's out there. It just is. And so it's a matter of time before someone finds it, and whether it's valuable enough to use is up to them. And there's such a volume of data. I don't know that they could really make total use of it all. But this goes back to what we were saying previously on another show about when Amazon.com first came out. People were really concerned about putting their credit card number online to order a book,
Yes.
despite the fact that the convenience of that book coming to your door was huge. Now, man, people are spending on Amazon like it's monopoly money. They just, you know what I'm saying? I'm sitting in bed and I'm just like scrolling, add to cart, scrolling, add to cart. That joint comes 2 days later or the next day. That convenience, the credit card scare just went right out the door. And so similarly, I think the scare over whether you're going to experience something negative, a lot of people outweigh that with the convenience of the capabilities that are offered to you. And again, if you're like me and have given up on the idea of privacy online, it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah. All right. What can we show today? Let's do a demo. Let's do something that we can show. Do you got anything
You
we
want to
can?
do a demo? Let's see. We could do a demo real quick.
What's some useful thing that you did last week?
Something useful I did last week. Well, one of the things I did last week was I established my AI co-founder, Veronica. Now, I named her Veronica after my mom. And my mom...
on the left side here, your AI employees folder.
That's exactly right. And this is actually the file structure of the ICM framework that we were talking about earlier. So it is not an exaggeration to say that if you went right down here to find her and you looked in my Claude Code folder, you would see the exact same folders. These are not exclusive to Virtual Studio Code, which is where I'm operating here. These file names are literally visible in Finder. It's the same thing. It's just that this presents it in a way that a coder or a programmer would be able to see it. And look at that. You can see it right there.
It's basically when you're in here, when you click on a certain file on the left, you can read it automatically versus having when you're in the Finder or Internet Explorer, or whatever. Was it?
That's
Internet?
right. So you can see the file path right there.
Not a
right?
Windows guy. So it was like when you're browsing your folder structure, you can just read it right away without having to click into it and open it. That's basically what this does for you.
So if I have created the ability to call up Veronica. Again, she's my co-founder. I modeled her after my mom because my mom was an incredibly responsible person, very diligent. And you can see here, this goes to what you were talking about, Sean. It is reading all of these files, her inbox, her soul, her identity, all of these things. This is the ICM framework happening in real time. She's reading company policies, this note that we made about go high level metrics, et cetera, et cetera. She's reading our meeting agenda. So if I was to have a meeting with her right now, she has read our agenda to see what we want to talk about. She's got here that we've got 3 conversations that we want to go through, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole series of things that we want to talk about. And I could say, let's start our staff meeting, and I want you to prioritize the top 10 things that we need to be working on at a strategic level. And she would do that.
So the files that you have here, as you click through some of these files, just click on one of them just so you can see. These are files that you decided to come up with, or is this, when you say the ICM framework, is it like literally predefined markdown files? Is that what it is?
Some of them are. So as you mentioned, there's the agents MD file, which talks about the, as it calls them, the hard rules. So for Veronica and her agent MD, we are not taking any action that costs money or touches outside systems without my explicit okay.
But all those markdown files, how many of those did you have to write yourself? I guess
I didn't write any of these files. I sat down with Veronica and we talked through. I literally had a meeting with her and said, these are the things that we need to work on. Here's where I want you to be. I want you to be up here at the strategic level. I don't want you down here in the tactics. And I just continued to iterate on what I wanted her role to be. And that's how that list of do's and don'ts, for lack of better words, came up. And so now, as you saw, she adheres to all of those things when she initiates. And then we have our meeting. She gives me a strategic plan. She keeps me on track. She'll tell me, listen, you're spending too much time building and not enough time on these other things. And so I'm like, yes, Mom. And then I go do the things I was supposed to do.
You're already falling into the, calling AI by its pronouns, like she does this, she does that. You didn't say it.
No, I didn't.
I
didn't. And I'll tell you why, because
it makes it more relevant to you, I guess, or
this helps me to remember who is who, right? Because as you could see on the prior screen, all of my various agents have a name and a role, because I want to be in conversation with AI where I can say, listen, Veronica, my co-founder and CEO, I need you to work with Soren, my project manager, to get this out to the rest of the team, right? Or I need you to work with Monet on the bookkeeping, because here are the expenses and some of the AI tools that I've subscribed to. I need you to get with Bridget because I need her to craft some social media that Soleil will create the graphics for, right? So I'm talking to them as if they are a real team. That helps me in my mind to organize who has what role. And it's just so much easier for me to do it that way.
I have 2 thoughts about this. So are you thinking about companies today need these functions? And so I will create roles for certain business functions and keep them as specialists within that certain area.
Yeah, this is a great question. The answer is,
are we kind of are we modeling our AI build against how corporations or how small companies work today? Or are we sort of looking for ways that we can do it totally differently? Or is it necessary to say, in order to control, like, let's say, the scope and the context, you say, I want to go down to the most granular sort of specialization and then let that AI employee do just that one thing really well. Because I think once you start putting too much into AI sometime, it loses a bit of context.
Yeah.
So it sounds like
So
you've kind of thought about it that way. We're like, okay, this person's the project manager, strategy focused. This person is the admin who sort of does the scheduling, and this person over here does like the social media stuff.
that's exactly right. I want this to be an office, but I didn't sit down and think, all right, recreate the corporate structure. What I sat down and thought about is, what are the things that I need to accomplish at a tactical level once I build the strategy? And then where are the pain points of things that I don't want to do? So I do not want to be in my email triaging everything. AI can do that for me, right? I do not want to be in my schedule. AI can do that for me. I don't want to be creating social media graphics, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all things that I need to do, but they are things that are repetitive that basically could have a skill built for them. So for anybody who doesn't know enough about what a skill is, we talk about skills a lot. A skill is literally something you could do. So if you can sit down to your computer and write a response email to your boss about this particular report that you send out every single month, month after month after month, you have developed that skill. Now you can teach AI, when I send this report to my boss, it includes our revenue projections, our costs, our outstanding invoices, and other relevant issues. Those 4 things. And if those are all that ever go into that monthly report, AI can start doing that for you. So the point is, a skill is something you have developed a competency in doing. And frequently, I like to think of them as repetitively. So to take it another direction, if you're posting on LinkedIn, say twice a week, that is a repetitive process that could be turned into a skill. And so I like people to think of AI skills and agents as being very specific to one thing so that that agent gets really, really good at just that. Otherwise, I'll give you an example. If you had an employee, Sean, and you said, listen, I need you to do payroll. I also need you to manage my schedule. You also need to order all the supplies for the office. And I need you to manage the inventory in the warehouse. That person would suck at all of them, right? Because it's too much.
Yeah.
But if that person was only doing inventory in the warehouse and that's all they were focused on, and they were just myopic and tunnel vision in their focus, they would be excellent at it. And that's the way you want to train your agents to be, is tunnel vision, completely focused on the one skill that they need to develop. That will prevent them from some of that divergent thinking that makes them inefficient.
Now, when you're writing the skill for that particular AI employee, that agent, it's based on your knowledge, not but I'm saying, like, whoever's creating an AI agent is going to likely build it off what they think is a good employee.
Yeah.
And they don't have the experience actually doing the job, like tracking the inventory for the warehouse or something.
That's right.
So do you then, go to a special agent and say, help me create that job role?
Yes.
Because I'm not an expert in managing the logistics of a warehouse or whatever the skill is.
Great. That's a great question.
Having been on a lot of projects, if you ask people, how do you do something? They will tell you the way they think it should be done, not the way
they've always done it, with all the Band-Aids on it.
Always done it without questioning, because they've been repetitively doing it and they don't see the gap.
So what I've done, the process that I go through is, I know there are many things that I don't know. So I've created a research agent that it's easy to train something on doing research, right? I need you to find all of the positives, negatives, and every angle on this and come back to me with a summary for it, right? So the research agent could do this. I've never managed inventory in a warehouse before, but I could say to the research agent, I need you to go figure out what are all of the best practices in warehouse inventory. What are all the pitfalls and challenges that will make inventory a terrible process and, lead to increased costs? And what are the emerging models in inventory that are making it better than it was, say, 10 years ago? Like, I try to ask it multiple different questions from different angles so that I can get a good understanding of what that industry is. And you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes the researcher will come back to you with some information, and you'll look at the information and go, oh, I didn't think about that. Let's elaborate on that piece and add this other angle. So this goes back to what I was saying in another conversation, is you need to use AI to help you build AI, right? Use it to do the research, use it to build your case, use it to generate knowledge for your agent. I'll give you another example. One of my agents is an editor, and I don't know a damn thing about editing, but there are several different kinds of editors. There's copy editors and line editors and all these other kinds of editors. I have no clue what they do. So I had my research agent go out and find out what all the different roles of editing are, and they brought them all back, and then we built my editor based on the information that he came back with from in his research.
You just have to use AI to help you craft these markdown files, so you're not writing from a blank piece of paper, basically.
That's exactly right. Listen, and tell it, ask me all the questions you need answered until you feel confident going forward with this. And that will get you in a conversation back and forth where you can clarify. If you didn't express something clearly, it will ask you a question. I didn't understand what you were saying here, or it will say it a certain way, and you'll be like, that's not what I meant. And so you get to have an opportunity to correct it, right? So this is an important component of making sure that you get things nice and clear. And one of the things I always tell people is, if you're engaging with AI the same way you engage with people, and your people communications aren't that good, your AI communications aren't going to be that good. So you have to figure out how to clearly articulate what it is you want, also what you don't want, and make sure that that is clear to the AI so that it will proceed down the path that you want it to go.
You've got to start with a goal in mind for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Damon. We'll wrap up here, and then we will pick it up again, I think, next week again. And
sounds good, Sean.
And see what other demos we can do, and give people some direction on what they're doing with AI.
Good stuff. Great to see you, Sean. Take care. All the best, buddy.